So you're looking to cook something easy and delicious? Let's make smoked pork tenderloin. Pork tenderloin is exactly like the filet mignon of pork. The thing I love about this is it's really easy to cook and very easy to prepare. For the trim on this pork tenderloin, one of the main things I want to focus on is this piece of silver skin right here. You can see there's a little bit all over, but that doesn't really worry me. I do, however, want to make sure that I get right under this big piece of silver skin. I've talked to you guys before about this. When I'm trimming my briskets up, I just like to make sure that I have a really nice and sharp knife. I just sharpened this one just a few minutes back, and I want to pretty much stay parallel to my tenderloin or basically anything that I'm trimming. It is a little bit tedious, but I definitely like taking off at least this larger piece because really it just makes for a very chewy bite when this is a really nice cut of pork, and we do want to make sure it's as tender as possible. So even though I'm taking a little bit of the meat off here, that's completely okay with me. You guys can see that this is not very much at all. And I'm just focusing on getting this trimmed up really nice. I told you guys a second ago that the preparation on this is extremely simple. And really when I'm cooking pork tenderloin, that's just about all that I do. Now that our pork tenderloin is all trimmed up, we're just going to start hitting it with a seasoning. Today we're using something that we've been testing out. We've been trying to develop here for a little bit, and we're using it right now on the competition circuit. So you guys have kind of been seeing that we've been competing a little bit, and you might be wondering why, because I've said in the past that I'm not really very interested in doing competition barbecue. Well, we just basically wanted to bring new products to the table, and hopefully we can soon. And we also knew that we needed to prove that our products were good. So that's exactly why you guys are going to see us using different products all year long. They might look a little bit different, but when we find that right combination, we're definitely going to be letting you guys know. So we have been doing pretty decent on the circuit here the last couple of weeks. We hit a first place brisket, we hit a second place chicken, and I've been using this rub consistently at both of those competitions. We have some other stuff in the works, but I don't want to tell you guys everything yet. So if I was to say what type of rub to use today, make sure to use something a little bit sweet, a little bit savory. This has a little pepper in there, some garlic, has a lot of great flavors. So basically whatever profile you're looking for. If you want spicy, some with a little bit of cayenne in there would do just fine. You could use Southern Hospitality for that as well. Gonna make sure to use the board here to pick up that extra seasoning. We definitely don't want any to go to waste. Now that we have everything trimmed up and seasoned up, it's time to show you how easy it is to make this pork tenderloin. Today we're using our Weber kettle with 2 charcoal baskets, and you might be wondering why we have the charcoal chimney here as well, and that's because we are going to use this to light up our briquettes. The reason I already have the baskets in there is because I'm going to use them as a guideline. What I'm going to do is fill it up completely here with B&B briquettes on both sides, and then I'm going to put that into my charcoal chimney. The reason I'm doing this is so I don't use too many briquettes and I'm not just wasting them. I just want barely enough to cover up these 2 charcoal baskets, and that's going to be perfect. So now my 2 charcoal baskets are perfectly filled up. I'm going to go ahead and dump them in to my chimney. And if you come take a look at our chimney, you'll see that we're not quite full on our charcoal. And that's exactly what I wanted to make sure of. We'll get these nice and hot, and then we'll distribute them evenly between our 2 baskets. I've got 2 B&B fire starters here that we're just going to get nice and hot, and then I'll put my chimney right on top. After about 15 minutes or so, our charcoal is nice and hot. There's a few briquettes that could get a little bit more hot, but we're just going to go ahead and pour this right into the charcoal basket. Gonna go ahead and get our grate down, and now I'm just gonna put my pork tenderloin right in the middle. So I'll tell you what, over here I can tell that my chunk of mesquite actually fell off of my coals, which kind of stinks a little bit, but it's okay. We're still gonna get a nice smoke flavor. So now that we have everything on the pit, we're going to use our ThermalWorks dot today. This is not an ad or anything, but I do want to make sure that this is cooked to the proper internal temperature. I'm not cooking this more than 143 degrees. Pork is completely safe to eat at 145. There might be a little bit pink in there, but that's completely okay. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be so tender, and it's going to have a bunch of flavor. I'm actually going to choose to probe the smaller one as well, and that's because I don't want to overcook anything. The bigger one can go a little bit longer. We can use my Thermopin in a little bit, but my goal is to make sure that the smaller one is cooked perfectly. Now that the cooking process has started, I want to make sure to keep an eye on this pork tenderloin. Now, if you notice my 2 charcoal baskets, one of them was 100% hotter than the other. So I'm going to keep that in mind, and if I need to, I can rotate the pork tenderloin to make sure I get a nice and even cook. I don't want anything overcooked. I don't want one side burnt. I don't want it more crusty than the other. I want to make sure I get a good overall bite. So as we go through the cooking process, we'll show you everything that we do. About 15 minutes later, we want to take a look at our pork tenderloins, and I told you guys that I wanted to kind of flip these around if needed. So this one here I could see is getting a little bit of color on one side, and that's because it's really close to the fire. I'm going to do the same thing right over here. And that's perfect. So you can see we're already getting a nice color here. Everything is getting a little hot, so I'm going to put the lid back on real quick. And just for everybody wondering, we are cooking around 375 or 400 degrees today. That's obviously not smoking temperatures, but do not forget, we have the baskets completely separate from the meat. So we're not burning anything, nothing's over direct coals, and we still are getting that indirect cook. Right at around 30 minutes later, our pork tenderloin is really close to being done. You can see that there's a great color on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flip this over, and you can see that there's not as much color on the bottom. Although it doesn't look bad at all, there's definitely not as much color. So we could obviously keep cooking this on this side now, get a little bit of smoke there, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit this with a light layer of sauce. Today we're using Head Country's barbecue sauce. This is the original blend. Really good barbecue sauce. It's just going to add an extra layer of flavor. Once I get it all nice and shiny on one side, I'll go ahead and flip this over, and we'll do the same exact thing to the top side. If you guys don't like barbecue sauce or you just don't want to add it here, that's completely fine. Like I said, I'm just looking to add a little bit more flavor, and really, I honestly just like barbecue sauce. After about a 30-minute cook and a 10-minute rest, this pork tenderloin is completely done. There was nothing hard about this. It was extremely simple. Let's go ahead and take some slices, and I can tell you already, it feels extremely tender. So here you can cut the medallions however you want. I usually do them, I don't know, I guess about this size, and it turns out pretty good. I like these little medallions because it kind of feels like a mini steak. They're oh so tender, and of course, here in just a second, I'll show you that money shot. Just judging by the way that this feels, I can promise you that this thing was absolutely nailed. Extremely juicy, feels extremely tender. I could literally feel the juices just running down my finger and onto my cutting board here. This was just too easy to be true. You guys can make this on a weeknight. You guys can make it any way you want. We've done with our Asian marinade before. They turn out killer. Let's go ahead and take a bite. Now it's time to take a bite of our perfect pork tenderloin. Man, that is so tender, so juicy. It's incredible that we cooked this in around 30 minutes, and this is a perfect weeknight meal. Even if you wanted to smoke it low and slow for a lot longer and get some nice smoke flavor on there, you definitely could. I will say that adding that mesquite just really gives it that nice kiss of smoke that I think just absolutely needs to be there. With this, you can make it so many different ways. Like we said before, be creative, have fun, get outside. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.